Hudson County View live at Uncut. I'm your host, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, where what you see is what you get and what you don't is better yet, John R. Highness, and of course to talk about the latest and greatest in Hudson County news. So there's quite a few things happening this week, like every week. So first of all, we're going to touch a bit about rewarding, as it's called, and this is of course redistricting for municipalities. So I had the opportunity to look over what happened in Jersey City and did what I feel was a fairly comprehensive breakdown of what's going on, how the process works, who was involved, and a whole lot more. So we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about what's going on in the Mile Square City. Of course, the only election that's upcoming is this school referendum, $241 million, and certainly there's strong opinions on both sides here. So we're going to talk about what happened at Tuesday evening's Board of Education meeting. And also in Hoboken, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened at that fatal fire at 38 Jackson Street last month. Of course, our hearts still go out to those families. We're going to talk about how you can help and what the latest investigation has revealed. We also now know that there's going to be at least one challenger to Rob Menendez Jr. in the 8th Congressional District. That's progressive organizer Ricardo Rojas. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about a new legal opinion out of Hoboken that talks about the implications of raising the union donation limit and what actions could or should be done going forward. And fortunately, on that point, today I'm joined with Hoboken Councilwoman-at-Large Jabbour. So we're going to talk, a lot of Mile Square City business, some of the things I just mentioned, and I imagine probably a little bit more right after we hear a word from our sponsors.
Good Friend Self-Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunnelly Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunnelly Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Hudson County View live at Uncut, John R. Highness. And as I just mentioned a few moments ago, today I'm joined with Hoboken Councilwoman-at-Large Jabbour, who's also the Vice President of the governing body in 2022. Councilwoman, thanks for being a part of the program today.
Sure, thank you so much for having me on.
So no problem. So let's just talk about the reorg meeting. Obviously, you and Third Ward Councilman Mike Russo got elected to the leadership team. Of course, he's the president. You're the vice president. Pretty decisive votes on both sides. Just why did you think that Councilman Russo would make a good president this time around?
I think, first of all, I'm grateful to my colleagues for, the majority of my colleagues for supporting my interest in being vice president of the council. I think Councilman Russo has had a very strong working relationship with this administration, with his colleagues, and, runs a good meeting. There's something to be said for making sure that the streamlined, efficient public meeting is implemented. And I think that's something that he's very interested in.
All right, very good. So when we're talking about the vice presidency and you guys working together with the administration and your colleagues going forward, what are some of your priorities, your major priorities for 2022?
Obviously, there's still a lot happening around our COVID response and how we're doing as a city to support people through what continues to be an extremely difficult time. I appreciate that the city has really gone above and beyond in so many ways to continue to pivot as the needs of our population have changed. And as this pandemic has shifted, we're really not in the clear yet. And I know that's top of the list. But I think we're also interested in looking at some larger priorities around our, some of the services to families. I'm very interested in our recreation department and how we're doing in terms of those programs. I know something that we all care very much about is continuing to try and do better on transportation initiatives, on parking, the Vision Zero initiative moving forward, and continuing to ensure that pedestrian safety is at the top of the list. So I think we're all on the same page with continuing to advance those priorities.
Okay, very good. So, talking a little bit about the COVID response, obviously a nationwide issue is so many people are taking PCR tests now due to the wave of Omicron. It's just making these lab delays almost impossible. We saw what happened in the public schools in Hoboken. Obviously, a lot of people ended up having to quarantine because the PCR results just weren't back in time. And with that, and on top of that, just people can't seem to have enough testing sites. Just the volume is so high. So, is there anything you could recommend that level? Whether it's just finding a site, whether it's just maybe taking a rapid test instead, like any information there that might be helpful?
Well, I'll say, I think, there have been challenges absolutely with how the testing process has gone. It's really mostly been on the end of the processing of the actual sample, working with our labs. I think the city of Hoboken has done a great job making sure there's a sufficient number of appointments available for testing. And I know that the school district also stood up their own testing site for the sake of bringing kids back after the holiday break. But their challenges, again, were with the lab side of things. And as the city of Hoboken just announced a couple of days ago, they've actually explored working with another provider on the lab side of this equation to make sure that people are getting their results in a timely way. It's a process that changes on a day-by-day basis almost. We're trying to just keep up with the guidance, keep up with the demand. And I think on the front end, to the best of our ability, we've stood up an infrastructure around getting people in the door for testing in an efficient way, but also then providing vaccinations to people who need them. And actually, one of the nice things that has resulted, my two kids are in elementary school in the district, so I'm very familiar with their policies around COVID. But what's been helpful is that, once your kids are vaccinated, you're actually able to continue to school even after exposures within the class. So while there may have been some challenges about getting back to school after the holidays, I do think people have options about how to make that work for their family.
Right. And also, we saw even for unvaccinated students, there's the new test to stay policy, which has the regular testing for 5 to 7 days, and so on and so forth. Obviously, you're familiar. So, anyway, let's. You mentioned Vision Zero for a moment, so let's talk about traffic safety. Obviously, the ultimate goal was zero traffic safety deaths by 2030, right? So,
That's
do you
correct.
think this is a tangible? Okay, you think this is a tangible goal for the Mile Square City, and how do you see that coming to fruition, if so?
I think that is a tangible goal. I do think there's been of late a shift in some of the behaviors, I'll say, in terms of things that I've heard both from residents, but I've observed as well. Hoboken does continue to see some very high speed incidents. Unfortunately, there's been a number of crashes that have been related to drivers going too quickly down streets that are narrow. And I'm thinking in particular, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, the flipped car on Bloomfield. That was, I think there were some concerns about the sobriety of the driver, I believe. But I've also witnessed that in two other cases at the intersection of 7th and Grand, and then also by the Monroe Center. A car to flip over entirely has everything to do with the speed of that car. And I know that one of the Vision Zero initiative, one of their top priorities is to actually look at reducing the citywide speed limit. And so that's something that the mayor has been working with the county and that we're all hoping to move forward as a way to address it. With people being home with COVID, it's almost brought this to even more of a priority because people are more present in their communities locally than perhaps they had been before. So it's something that I hear from a lot of residents that they want to continue to see us invest in.
Very good, Councilwoman. With that, don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to be right back. Just going to take another commercial break.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Ford made their first all-electric SUV a Mustang. Rapid acceleration, reactive handling, 300-mile range. You control how it feels and how it sounds. It knows you. It dials into your preferred settings. It has an array of driver assist technology. Cameras and sensors enhance your awareness and provide you with additional control. But it's more than cutting-edge technology. It's the spirit of it. It's a Mustang.
Hudson County View live on Uncut. Jabbour, and I'm still with Hoboken Councilwoman-at-Large Jabbour. So, Councilwoman, obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the program, and needless to tell you, the hottest issue in the city right now is the school referendum. And I know you proudly came out in support of this. And, the two different points of view, and I mean, while there's a lot of details to cram in there, I guess it would be this. One, similar to what you said, you would say that this is an investment in our children, and this is a worthwhile one that is going to pay dividends for many decades. The other being that this was a rush process, it's too expensive, and we could do better. So tell me why you ended up where you're at today.
Sure. So I wear a couple of different hats when I'm thinking about this issue. As I mentioned, I have two children who are in the district at Brant Elementary School. So I've had the perspective of being an active parent in the district since my older daughter started in pre-K. I've been attending Board of Ed meetings regularly just to be aware of what they're working on and their priorities. But then on the other side of this, I also wear my hat as a council person and looking out for our residents, looking out for the larger community. Particularly for my role being an at-large council person, I have the benefit of hearing from people across the city in all of the different neighborhoods. And I have been listening, and I have definitely been part of the back and forth in terms of understanding how people are reacting, what their concerns are, what their questions are. I'm very grateful that the Board of Ed has set up a very responsive process in terms of having an email address. So after I did get some questions, I've been able to kind of orient people to asking those questions to the appropriate audience with the Board of Ed. And I know they've been very responsive on their website. They have an ongoing kind of live document FAQ about all the different questions that people have raised. I understand that there have been concerns about the process. Again, nothing is perfect. I think there were some very real questions about, the timing of this, when this, the rollout. And for me, having met with Dr. Johnson, having met with the Board of Ed trustees to understand those dynamics, I feel very comfortable that they have been very thorough in their diligence and in their mission to ensure that the students of our district are provided for in terms of their facilities needs. While it may seem that this particular referendum has come up in a way that people feel is sudden, this has actually been a long-term project that the district has worked on. And for those who have been working with them for some time, I know that they've explored a number of different options. Those are conversations that have been ongoing. This challenge in terms of the increased enrollment and the fact that several of our elementary schools are at capacity, that the middle school is nearly at capacity, this didn't come out of any, left field. Dr. Johnson has been very diligent in looking at this and working on a long-term basis with the architect of record, Mount Vernon Architects, to come up with different ideas for ways to address this challenge. And ultimately, what they're proceeding with in terms of the proposal to construct a new high school is part of that larger strategic vision to ensure that there's a sufficient level of facilities for all of our students.
All right. Yeah, certainly you said a lot. I think that's a pretty, extensive summation of what's been happening here. But on that point, we know at the minimum, the earliest date that they submitted to the state, the Department of Education in New Jersey, was September 2019. So as you said, this didn't happen overnight. However, unless you're like a real hardcore insider, you wouldn't even know, there's no way you would know that. And also, this didn't come up in that Board of Ed election, the 2020 board election, the 2021 board election. So don't you think this could have been presented a little more transparent, a little bit earlier?
In addressing that question, I would say when I've spoken to the folks involved with this in the Board of Ed side of this, they didn't feel comfortable bringing to the public something that had not yet been approved. And I can understand how that would be, because that would create a moving target in terms of how the public would be able to really weigh the merits of the process and the project. I think they just wanted to be very clear that whatever they were going to move ahead with had the full blessing of the State Department of Education. And I don't fault them for that, because that's a really very valid way of approaching this process, to bring people something that is realistic and feasible based on the state approval process that's required. So in that sense, I don't think, unfortunately, I think people have hurled some pretty nasty comments in the direction of the Board of Ed because of the fact that they chose to proceed in this manner. I hope that people are being thoughtful about listening to Dr. Johnson specifically. I know that at each of the community meetings, she's walked through this history with people in a way that's very thoughtful and reflects the fact that this is something that she wants to keep in a completely above board manner and being as transparent as she can be within the bounds of ensuring that we have an efficient process. Seeing all of the back and forth, and being at the Board of Ed meeting this week, it's very obvious this is a widely debated issue right now for the residents of Hoboken. It makes me shudder to think about how this would have gone if we had given people, a longer runway in terms of allowing this to go on. It's similar to, unfortunately, a political election. And folks, really by behavior tend to only dial in at the last minute.
But so one other thing that I wanted to touch on today, sorry to cut you off, but so
Nope.
Corp Council put out an opinion at the end of last year. To my knowledge, members of the public had not seen it until this week, including myself. And that vote on raising union donation limits from $500 to $7,200, she said that this may not sustain a legal challenge, so or survive, I guess I should say, a legal challenge. So just your thought on the opinion that he released there.
So I actually, which is different from my colleague, I think Councilwoman Fisher, who has been speaking about this in the press, am of the understanding that actually the opinion that was provided was for the benefit of the council and not for public consumption. But I will say that I think on this issue more generally of campaign finance, I feel very comfortable about where we landed with the ordinance, which was to connect that to the ongoing court action associated with this matter. What's really at heart in terms of what's going on here that we're trying to cure for is the fact that not everyone is conforming with local campaign election laws. I myself have always made sure to follow those laws. I've respected them through both of my elections, but unfortunately that's not true across the board. So how do we ensure that there's a level playing field for people who want to be involved? And currently, we're awaiting the court case to come back, and the ordinance that was passed ensures that whatever the decision is made in the courts, we will respect and implement locally.
Does the council have any plans to take on Corporation Council's suggestion to do a revote in the near future?
I'm comfortable with where we are at this time. If there's a concern that arises or if there's a difference of opinion, we'll take that on as it comes. But so far, I've not been aware of that.
All right. And the case with the first ward councilman, obviously that's what this ordinance and this opinion centers around. This has been in the courts, I believe, about 28 months. So it could get settled next week. It could get settled next month. It could get settled in 6 months. We just don't know. So why do you think it was better to do this now as opposed to when the case concluded?
I think we're looking for the court to take action. Unfortunately, there's been a change of venue filed a couple of times, and that's part of the delay as well as COVID. So now that we're sort of settling into more of a cadence about how things are being handled in a more virtual environment, I'm hopeful that this will move forward and be adjudicated.
Okay, very good, Councilwoman. Any parting thoughts for us?
No, thank you so much. It's never dull in Hoboken. There's always something going on. So thanks for keeping us in the news.
Yes. You're not kidding. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in one of our many high-rise towers. With amenities such as the on-site Newport Path, light rail, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Kohl's, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams and Acme Supermarket are just outside your front door. A health and fitness center, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. Enjoy the New York skyline from our waterfront and various parks. Manhattan is just one pass stop away, or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Looking to visit? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. For more information, visit us at newportnj.com. Make lasting memories to cherish forever. It's incredible. It's you, Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View live on Uncut, John R. So let's talk a little bit about those ward maps in Jersey City. So there's a lot to parse through, but I'm going to do my best without just rereading you the whole article. So the bottom line is this. There is a board of ward commissioners, and they consist of 7 people. So, and this also happens every 10 years after the U.S. Census. So the municipal clerk serves as the secretary for each of these boards. So in Jersey City, the secretary is City Clerk Sean Gallagher. John Manila, who many of you know is a top aide to Mayor Stephen Fulop. He serves as the chair of this board, and there's 5 Board of Elections commissioners who are appointed by the governor. So that's Danielle McKelly, Republican from West New York, Janet Laura, a Democrat from Bayonne, Daniel Beckelman, Republican from Jersey City, Peter Portman, a Democrat from Jersey City, and Paul Castelli, a Republican from Kearney. So, according to municipal ward law, the state statute, it says the ward commissioners shall fix and determine ward boundaries so that each ward is formed of compact and contiguous territory. The population of the most populous ward so created shall not differ from the population of the least populous ward so created by more than 10% of the mean population of the wards derived by dividing the total population of the municipality by the number of wards created. So obviously that's not the most straightforward talk in the world. So when I was having a conversation over the phone with Hudson County Board of Elections Clerk Michael Harper, he summed it up pretty succinctly, I believe. He said, rewarding is not a process created to make people happy, but it's a pretty straightforward process for us. We're looking to decrease the deviation. And he said, you redraw wards by population and you draw district lines by registered voters and maintain them by voter turnout. Ironically, rewarding is not a rewarding process. So with that in mind, if you look at my Twitter, I did this kind of comprehensively, but really these are some of the key takeaways, and I'll just walk you through I think the biggest alterations, I guess. So the new map shows this: Society Hill and the area designated for the Bayfront in Ward A moving to Ward B, Liberty State Park and the Liberty Science Center, SciTech City heading to Ward A. This has, caused a little bit of dismay among the representatives on the South Side. I spoke with Ward A Councilwoman Denise Ridley, and she said, I think it's unfair. This is the best way to change the map, that I will adjust to the change. My issue is a lack of communication with residents of my office. The people voted me back in. They deserve to know this process is occurring. And I also spoke with Ward F Councilman Frank Educational Gilmore. Many of you know he's spoken out against SciTech City and the privatization of LSP. And he said, what I'm really concerned about is the lack of advertisement, the redrawing of the maps, trying to get clarity on why they were drawn this way. We need better advertising, more dialogue. This is a diverse commission who approves it after they look at it. There's just so much uncertainty. Which, I think a lot of people that are just finding out about this in the past 12, 24 hours feel that way. But with that, I just want to point out that the Board of Ward Commissions has to submit this by the 16th, and then approve it, I should say, by the 16th. And then they have to submit this to the Secretary of State on January 21st. So, obviously we're towards the end of the line here. And there's a public meeting on Zoom tomorrow at 5:30, and you can find that link in the story. And I also want to mention that Ward E, which is the city's most populous ward, could see portions of 1st, 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 8th Streets head to Ward C, the area north of the Holland Tunnel moving to Ward D, and an area east of the Jersey City Medical Center on Grand Street extending to Ward F. And the median population, when it's all said and done, is going to be 48,865 people per ward. And the most is in Ward D, 49,211. The least in Ward A, 48,234. So I spoke to Mayor Stephen Fulop, who was, of course, the Ward E councilman last time the districts were redrawn, the municipality wards were redrawn. And he said 2 important points here are that, first, the new proposed map is not something that the city has any flexibility on because the rules are prescribed by state law of what needs to happen here. Those laws are very clear on timing and circumstances. Secondly, the people deciding the ward map aren't any elected officials, but rather appointments by the governor to the Board of Elections. So this isn't a partisan map, but rather based on prescribed law and rules of fairness. On the personal front, I remember going through this in 2010, and everyone is always upset by this at first, and then they eventually adjust, as unfortunately the reality is that there is little flexibility any of us have over this process due to population growth and laws. With that, we're going to take our final commercial break. We'll be right back.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintodevelopment.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View live on Uncut, John R. Highness. So one of the other elections that has kind of fallen to the wayside of the past few weeks is the 8th congressional district race. I mean, we know U.S. Rep. Albio Series isn't running again. We know that pretty much every Democratic elected official has come out in support of Robert Menendez Jr., the son of U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, and of course a Port Authority commissioner and an attorney as well. Well, now it looks like we'll have a contested race in June after all. We heard from progressive organizer Ricardo Rojas, and he says he's ready to throw his hat in the ring. He said in a statement, "It's time for a change, for everyday people to have a seat at the decision-making table. That's why I'm running for Congress, to empower people and fight for our community's interests, not the party bosses." And, this is somebody that's had some familiarity with local politics. Behind the scenes, though, he was actually a part of Hector Oseguera's 2020 congressional race. Of course, Oseguera took on Series, and while the final numbers were wildly competitive, it was a pretty fun race to watch, in my opinion. We also see here that Rojas defines himself as a co-founder of the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey and the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County. And we heard from someone that he helped out last year. That was in November. This is Danielle Freer, who challenged for the Ward D council seat. And she said, "Ricardo has built his career on helping everyday people run for office. This campaign strengthens our democratic process by focusing on the community without asking for permission from a powerful few." So his initial platform, what you just said in short, includes affordable rentals and home ownership opportunities, mass transit expansion, student loan forgiveness, Medicare for all, and a Green New Deal. Not shocking, these are all pretty uniform progressive policies across the board, regardless of where people are running. Interestingly, he gave out his phone number, said he's happy to talk on WhatsApp, on text, or give him a call, 201-744-3804. He concluded by saying, "Whether you call this place home for 30 days or 30 years, I believe you belong in this community. Everyone, regardless of race, gender, or economic status, deserves to grow, live, work, and age comfortably here. I believe this faith in our community will lead us not just to the halls of Congress, but to end the corrupt systems that oppress and divide us." So with that, we're obviously going to keep an eye on that race along with the Bayonne Municipal in May. But we're going to move on to a apolitical matter. We're going to talk just for a brief moment about what happened at 38 Jackson Street. And of course, there was that double fatal fire. Unfortunately, a couple was killed last month. And there's been an investigation that involved alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, as where also Hudson County Prosecutor's Office was a part of that. So the preliminary investigation shows that it started in the rear of a CBD smoke and vape shop. So again, just to reiterate, the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office Regional Task Force and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives revealed the fire began in the rear of the building. That was Glass and Vapor House, LLC. And at the moment, it's been ruled an accident. Long story short, during fire suppression activities back in December, that was December 20th, early in the morning, 12:20 a.m., there were two victims in the warehouse, Rosemary Voss, who was 60, and a 61-year-old individual were both pronounced dead. Now, they haven't identified the second individual because he has no next of kin, but a GoFundMe page for Voss has identified the second victim as her husband, Alex. So, if you'd like to help out directly to the family, of course, that's an option. The Hoboken Relief Fund has been reestablished to help businesses that have been impacted as well. So, certainly this is something that the community is doing their best to come together for. And it's also, again, still under investigation. So we don't have all the answers right now, but certainly we're moving forward and we're getting a little closer. So, obviously keep everyone impacted in your thoughts and prayers if you'd be so kind. And just another quick thing before we go, two quick things. So I just want to also, say congratulations, Dr. Norma Fernandez, the New Jersey City Board of Education interim superintendent, and also a refresher to everyone that the Jersey City Council is back to in-person meetings. We reported on that on Monday at their caucus. Had a couple stories out of there. A lot of people heading into Wednesday seemed unfamiliar until there was a tweet from the city of Jersey City. So with that, we're going to let you guys call it a week. We'll see you soon. Have a good one.